Hi guys, here we are back for week 3 of our exploration of The Enlightened Gardener, and wow, the chapters this time, right? So I have read these chapters about 5 times, and my experience of them has been really disjointed. Actually, this is just what I'm noticing this time around, whether it's my headspace, I don't know, whether it's there was lots of little snippets that caught my eye, but no coherent thread that in my experience through these 5 chapters. It felt like they were all discrete chunks talking about covering so much. And in my mind, we could have done a module on pretty much every paragraph in there. And so after thinking that I was just going to keep reading it until I had something that was a key theme that I wanted to share with you, I've actually just in the end pulled out a couple of points that I just wanted to speak more about that I really enjoyed in those chapters. So part of this reading and watching Sid is noticing your experience as you do it. Like sometimes you're going to get nothing from this, and sometimes you'll get heaps from listening, and it just is what it is, right? There's no judgment, there's no like, I must get this. It's both experiences are fine. And yeah, so I just wanted to like out that, because it's not that I read Sid, I get massively inspired and get insights every time. Just doesn't work that way. But I just wanted to highlight that so you knew that was okay. So the few bits that I wanted to like, and when I read the book, what I do is I go through and mark the side of the paragraphs, and I've got about 20 different paragraphs that I've marked out, and I didn't want to just dot around 20 different paragraphs. So there's just a few that I want to talk to you about. Stuff that was new for me. So there's one part, and this is in the chapter on rediscovering mind and soul. And there's one part where Andy is asking Peter about consciousness raising groups. They're having a conversation about consciousness. And Peter's saying, tell me more about consciousness. I know what that is. I've been to consciousness awareness groups. And Andy's saying to him, tell me, Peter, what do people look for in these consciousness raising groups? And he says, the group members, they look for little faults in their own characters, and they attempt to become better aware of them, or they try to become aware of what is causing problems in their marriages. In other words, they try to become consciously aware of what is happening in their lives. Kind of sounds like when clients come to me and they think that by talking through the content of their thinking, they'll get a better awareness of their problems, and therefore that raises consciousness, raises awareness, and therefore solutions will happen. You've got to talk through your problems in order to find a way through them. Andy listened intently to Peter's explanation about consciousness raising groups, and then put 2 fingers over his lips as if deep in thought. Correct me if I'm wrong, young man, but I think we're talking about 2 different things altogether. You are talking about the form our level of consciousness has led us to, such as a bad marriage or an unhappy life or whatever. But I'm talking about consciousness as a spiritual neutral power before human experience. So it's not even the point that Andy's trying to make that really caught my eye. It was that there's a form our level of consciousness has led us to in our lives. The level of consciousness we habitually walk around in our lives is creating the state of our marriages, the relationship with our children, the productivity that we have at work, our health in our bodies. This is the form. This is the form that's been created by that habitual level of consciousness. I never thought about it that way before. And so that's cool, because if I look out into the form of my life and there's something in there I don't like, and let's face it, when we look out into the form of our life, there's always something that we don't like. To know that's a product of my level of consciousness, I can take accountability for the state of my life right now. That's the first biggie. Rather than poor me, look at my life. Like what's happened such that my life has ended up like this? It's like, this is a totally, if I see that this is a level of my consciousness, I totally get it. I see why I've set my work up this way. I see why I struggle in my relationships over here and not over there. I see why that looks more important to me and that doesn't. So therefore, that's where I spend more of my time. And so firstly, we take accountability. And secondly, if there's anything we don't like in our lives, in the form of our lives, the solution is a shift in consciousness. Because a shift in consciousness will create a different life in the world of form. If we see that, for example, we're trapped inside our houses because of fear and insecurity, that's a level of consciousness playing out in form, a level of consciousness that means that the form of our lives is quite limited and constricted. But if you want to be going out of your house and traveling more, to use that example, a shift in consciousness will create a different a life in form where you are able to travel. So there's always only one solution. A shift in consciousness changes everything in the world of form. How cool. I love it when there's only one solution to any problem. So I'd never seen that way before, but it makes total sense when I think about it. Then the next bit that I wanted to talk to you about was, there's a bit where they're asking the gardener, can you explain exactly what you mean by universal truth? What is true? Andy looked at Emily as if to say, here we go again. Then he smiled and replied, since time began, the wise have tried to explain their conception of truth intellectually, knowing their words were no different from an artist's painting of a beautiful sunset. No matter how excellent the painting or how realistic the picture may appear, it is not the sunset. Similar to the artist's painting, the words of the wise have created only a psychological illusion. So sometimes when we bump into this understanding of the principles, we try and understand, like, how do I get this right? Like, what is the right way of describing the principles? Or what is what's right about free will? Is there or isn't there? What's right about the inside out nature of life? Is it true? Is it right? Is it correct? What I'm thinking about it? Am I seeing this accurately? What is true about, we go around and ask our coaches and mentors, like, what's true about the nature of love? What's true about how, like, it looks to me that this might be true, but am I getting it right? As if our teachers and our mentors, the words that they say and the ideas that they have and the beliefs that they have and what they see for themselves are true and factual and correct. And if we could just see the world the way they see them, then we'd be seeing what's true. And in fact, all that any of us who are teachers in this understanding and wise people throughout the ages, as Sid is pointing out here, are attempting to do is to point in the direction of truth. There is one truth. And it lies before all of the concepts and the ideas. The three principles are not truth. They are concepts, metaphors, ideas, ways of pointing to what is actually true. This deeper truth, which can't be described in words. It's formless, it's feelingful, it's shapeless, another word for formless, but there is no matter. It can't be described, it can't be seen, it can't be observed, it can't be described. Like my words just don't do it justice. It can never do it. My painting of the sunset is never the sunset, but it's my best attempt to point you to a sunset. If you've never seen a sunset before, these pictures are a way of trying to evoke the beauty of a sunset in you, best we can. We've got nothing else. We're limited by the paintbrush and the canvas. We can't show you a sunset if you haven't seen a sunset. So that means that your attempts to try and get it right, like get your understanding in order. I remember when I first discovered the principles, I created 4 pages of A4 with bullet points of what was true about the principles. Like, hang on a minute, I don't understand why they haven't done this in the principles understanding. I'm going to get it really clear. And so I wrote down, like, thought creates feeling. I wrote down, I don't know, all the things that I thought I knew about the principles, as if those were the truths. And all I'd done was done some really pretty poor sketches of sunsets. I knew there was something that I was attempting to try and describe. I knew there was something here. I had a feeling for it, but I couldn't. You can't put it down in words. Now, you can have a 3 principles conference where every single teacher in that room is painting a sunset. They will all look different. Some will be more beautiful than others. Some will move you more than others, but none of them are the sunset. And yet the sunset is there to be realized by all of us. It is our true nature. It's what we're made of. And everything else is an effort to point to that. So your painting of a sunset will look one way, and then there'll be a shift in consciousness or an insight or a different understanding or a conversation, or something will happen in your life. And next time you paint the sunset, it will look different. And that will become your new truth. And then you'll paint it and look different, and that'll become your new truth. And so your understanding of the principles will evolve over time, and it's always moving in the direction of more and more truth. But what you see right now and understand about the principles won't be the same as what you understand a month from now, a week from now, maybe even 10 minutes from now. It's a continually evolving journey, this unveiling of truth. Good to know when you think if you could just get all the facts in the right order, then you would suddenly find peace of mind. No, it's not like if you learn lots of principles about maths, then suddenly you'll get how to do a formula, right? Or if you learn everything there is to know, like if you learn all the vocab and the words in French, suddenly you'll be able to speak French fluently. It's more like there's a level of fluency of French. And then you go out in the world and you live that level of French as you go out in your world and you speak your French. And then over time, like suddenly you have a different level of knowing of French, and you go out and your world looks different. It looks easier and simpler. And then you have a different level of knowing of French, but you never get to the end of knowing of all of French. There is no end to it. It's kind of more like that. And you are wherever you are in that journey, right? All of us have some level of understanding of French, right? It might be like 2 words, it might be fluent. And we're all somewhere in that range. But I don't think you probably give yourself a really hard time about not knowing more French all the time, right? Or the fact that you don't know perfect French, or that someone who is a very fluent French speaker is speaking to you and you're like, why aren't I speaking like he is? Right? That would seem ludicrous. It's like Sid Banks had the whole of French language and culture revealed to him. It's kind of like that. And now he's doing his best job to try and point us to that, so that we can be touched by the same experience he has had. Cool, huh? And then the last bit that I wanted to bring up was, the story with the Swami and the flute in the tree in the chapter, The Picnic. So I won't tell you the whole story because hopefully you've already read the chapter. But the last bit was just so hit home to me. Young man, the important thing is that you realized the answer on your own. Had I merely given you the answer, it would probably have just become another one of your beliefs. We've just been running a retreat here for the practitioners, and there was a question that came up with like, I'm not sure, like, is it like this or is it like that? I'm confused because I'm not sure, because sometimes it's inside out, but sometimes outside in, but I'm not sure. And my colleague John was teaching with me, and instead of answering her question or correcting her to what was actually true, that was kind of what she was asking, he just said, I want you to sit with it and see what answer is true for you. Kind of referring to what we were talking about before. But get quiet and see what you realize about it for yourself. So that's what I see over and over again in our Facebook group, right? Is like people go, well, I read this. What do you think about that? Or I'm confused because is it this or is it that? Or I'm confused because and we've bumped into a new idea and our minds have all got caught up, and then we go outside of ourselves to seek clarification for the answers to that question. Rather than, we're just not used to letting all those questions settle and see what the new pattern of understanding is once they've all settled. We think by putting more and more and more info into the system, it's going to be helpful instead of letting it settle and seeing what we realize for ourselves. So John saying to the question, well, I see it this way, just encourages the person to take on that as a new belief, as a new thought, as a new belief, as a new way of living, rather than insightfully seeing for yourself. And that's what we're always looking for in this journey. It's like, what do you realize for yourself that nobody's telling you? Right? That's what it's like to listen to and be impacted by what it is that you're hearing. Is in my experience, I'm listening to somebody and all of a sudden I realize something that's probably completely unrelated to what they're talking about. That's my realization. That's my understanding. That's mine. That's valuable. Being able to repeat back what the teacher just said, as if I understand it, completely unhelpful. That's why it's really important, I think, for you to read these chapters and see what comes up for you before you listen to me. Otherwise, you'll just take on what I'm talking about as a new belief, and that's not kind of the point of it. So I want to finish off with this last quote, which is at the end of the picnic. Only in the quiet chambers of your mind will you find real knowledge. For it is here, with the assistance of mind, consciousness, and thought, that the incubation takes place and the wisdom you seek is brought forth into this world of form. Everything I just said for the last 16 minutes, said more beautifully by Sid in that quote. So next week, we're on to the final few chapters of the book. I haven't read them yet, so I'm going to kind of enjoy them along with you. And so read the last few chapters of the book before you watch the video for next week. And I look forward to connecting with you again there. Take care.